you would be with us this morning as we gather together, as we hear a presentation from our brother David. We just pray that you would be with him, continue to be with the work that they are doing. And although that there have been so many roadblocks and obstacles that have been put in the way, we just pray that you would be with them in their hearts and minds, continue to give them love, continue to give them wisdom on how to navigate these things. We just pray that all that is done, not only there, but also all that the church does around the world would be done for your glory and honor. We thank you again for this opportunity we have. We pray that you would be with us all. It's all in your Son's most holy name we pray. Amen.
Well, good morning. Everybody awake now? We need to maybe adjust our microphone a little bit there. I'll talk a little normal. Okay. Well, everybody's awake now. It's good to see all of you all and great to be with you. I do try to come by and visit and give you an update at least every 2 years. Of course, the pandemic kind of made it 3 years now, this trip, but it is, 2.5, but it's good to be with you all. And you all can we turn that mic? It sounds like it's still a little bit loud. I talk louder than this, and I feel like I'm whispering. There we go. Maybe that's better. You guys are going to have to get a hold of Tom Torpy. He heard I was coming to town, and so he split. He ain't here. And what kind of friend is that? So now really he had to go to a grandson's graduation, I think it was. So, but I just had to make fun of that because, here I come after 3 years and he takes off. And I'm trying to remember, I think 2.5 years ago he was gone too. So there's a pattern here. He's finding good excuses. So anyway, it is great to be with you all and getting to know Jack a little bit here. I think we're going to get together for lunch today. So I want to get to know Jack a little bit too and maybe convince him to come over to Zambia sometime and teach. But don't tell him that. I got to work on him. It's good to be with you. And sorry, Lori can't be with me. I flew over this time because pandemics put me so far behind in visiting everybody. I got to make 4 trips to Carolinas this year, so I'm going to drive to meet half of them and fly half of them. So I flew in this time to visit, so I didn't want to buy more airline tickets than I have to. If you're not getting our newsletter, I'd love for you to sign up for that. We are doing a digital and a printed version that we mail out, but they're different now. I can put video and pictures, and I'm seeing the digital ones more frequently. So if you're not getting both, you can sign up for both. Just write your name and address or email address on a piece of paper. Write clearly. Email addresses don't like it if I think a 2 is a 5 or something. But anyway, give that to me and I'll put you on whichever one you're not getting. I'd love for you to get it because that way you can keep up with our work in Zambia. And also I have put in the back, as I said, Lori and Karen couldn't be with me. I'm behind here. The other thing I was going to mention is this, there we go. There's some brochures I put back there on the table with your bulletins. And so you might want to pick up some of them afterwards about that. We've been in Zambia now for 17 years. And people often ask me, I hate standing behind pulpits. People often ask me, when I get out of the car, I get asked, well, how are things going in Zambia? Well, they want the bottom line. And the bottom line is last year, despite the pandemic, we had the best year that we've ever had. We have developed a great staff. Things are going well. I think it seems like in the last 3 or 4 years, it's sort of like we kind of feel like it's taken us a long time to get there through experience and trial and error, but it's like we feel like we kind of put together a training program that now is effective and is doing what we want it to do. Yes, we still have improvement to make. We'll keep doing that, but it's sort of like now we're producing the kind of student that we want to see graduate. I want to share with you this morning 3 main ministries that we are involved with. There's some other things, but these are the 3 main ones. And of course, the Bible College is our number 1 ministry, our primary one. We have 3 classrooms. We have a big auditorium that's 110 feet long by 50 feet wide. We can do combined classes and chapel and Sunday worship and lectures. So we've got that multi-purpose building. It really works well for us. And then we've got the small class, a third classroom that's in office building that we finished about a year ago, and that gives us our third classroom. We still need to build one for the women's program, which we hope to do in the second part of this year. But we're reaching the end of needing to our construction and development, which I'll sure be thankful when we finish that. But we are about finished with our construction. We have 30 married student apartments. These are just simple 3-room houses. They don't have indoor toilets or indoor plumbing and kitchens. That's outside. And the reason is we don't want to raise their standard of living. They come from the bush and we want them to go back to the bush. We don't want them to get used to urban city fancy life. We don't want to ruin them. So we're trying to keep it just as simple and as we can. We did about a year ago build a dormitory that houses some of our single students. So when you add all our students together, that gives us a total number of about somewhere between 85 capacity for about 85 to 95 students. We've had about 600 that have graduated from our training program in the last 17 years. The last 3 graduating classes have just been very, very good. We're very happy with this because about 5 years ago when we moved to our new campus, we shifted from a 2-year program to a 3-year training program and totally redesigned it, as I'm going to share with you in a minute. And we now had 3 classes to go through that program and graduate, and we feel very good about those students. And the ones that graduated this past November were the best that we ever produced. They were the most spiritual-minded students that we've ever had. And so we were just very happy. Despite the pandemic, we had an excellent group of students and their wives who went through the women's program that have graduated and now have returned back to their home villages. Our mission statement says we're there to develop and train self-supporting spiritual leaders who are equipped for holistic rural ministry. And there's several components of this. I'm going to kind of share with you about these, but the one that I want you that I want to emphasize here more than anything else is that we are trying to develop spiritual leaders. If we don't do anything else right, this is the one thing we want to make sure we get done. This is by far our number one priority. And that means that we are training ministry and we're particularly trying to develop the spiritual life of these students. So we're talking about spiritual formation, life transformation. That's the thing that we're most concerned about, more than how much Bible knowledge they have or how much training they have in other ministries. We want to make sure we develop the student himself. And so you say, why is that your number one priority? And the reason is you've got to understand the situation that we're looking at in Zambia. 85% of the people of Zambia claim to be Christian. Now, I want to tell you what, that doesn't mean all that much. A lot of people go into church. In fact, there are more people that go to church on Sunday morning in Africa than go to church in all of North America and Europe combined. In fact, twice as many people are going to church in Africa now than in the Western world. And that changes our view of the world right now. We've always kind of thought, well, Christianity is a Western phenomenon, and that's where it's strong, and that's where the gravitational center. Well, that's not true anymore. It is now Africa and Southeast Asia in particular, and America, but particularly parts of Asia and Africa. There are more members of the Churches of Christ in Africa now than there are here in the United States. So the Western world is not the center of Christianity anymore. That is good news because, that's the result of all the mission work that we've been doing since World War II. And not just us, but, across the denominational world as well. So we got a lot of people going to church, and so they talk about it being the global South now. That's where Christianity has shifted in the world now. But there is a, why am I not ahead? There is, okay, I got to, Little problem here with my remote for some reason. Well, let's go on. Um, though receptivity is very high, I guess you would say the bad news about this is that we have a lot of people going to church, but it's not really changing the way that people are living. And, I see people that are going to church, but they're still living the way they always did. It's not changing the way they're living their life. And you say, why is that? And one reason is because Christianity really hasn't been in Africa all that long. It's been there for quite several centuries, but here's a graph that shows you. It's been there for a long time, but it's been since World War II that we saw this exponential growth that just took off, and Africa went Christian in the last 50, 70 years since World War II. So we got a lot of people going to church. It's exploded. And by the way, Islam is not making headway, despite what all you may hear. Islam is not moving into Africa. It's got North Africa, has for a long time, but Sub-Saharan Africa has gone Christian. And Islam is not making any headway. But it's only been there about 75 years, see? We've got, how many years has Christianity been in the Western world? 2,000 years. Well, I'm glad to know that we figured it out. We have mastered it. They've just got 75 years, you see? So let's cut them a break. We need to lower our expectations because, it takes time for people to shift their worldview and start thinking from a God-centered worldview instead of a pagan world. Another reason Christianity hasn't perhaps grown as much, matured as we would like to see it, is because of the African worldview. They did not grow up with a Christian worldview. Their worldview is shaped by what we would call animism or paganism. In their worldview, it's a very mechanistic world. If bad things are happening to you, then you go down to the witch doctor, and like all doctors, he's going to prescribe what is causing your problem. But you see, in his prescription, it's not just the physical, it is the spirit world that's the most important dimension, because in their worldview, the spirit world is what is controlling what happens in the physical world. So this witch doctor will cast bones on the ground, he'll read tea leaves, or he will kill a chicken if you give him extra money. Apparently this is a better diagnosis, whether you want an MIR or a scan. Well, you give him more money, he's going to kill a chicken, pull the guts out, and depending on the color of the guts, give you a better prescription. But anyway, he'll tell you what's causing your problem. An ancestor's upset with you, or some demons. You've been cursed by someone. There's a lot of different things, but it's the spirit world has cursed you and is making bad things happening to your life. Now, a witch doctor, like any doctor, then is going to give you a prescription. Besides a diagnosis, he's going to give you a prescription. He may tell you to go make a sacrifice to your ancestor because you buried the grandfather on the wrong side, and he's upset with you about that, so you need to go make him happy with some sacrifices. Or you've been ignoring your spiritual family or something, not naming them their names and remembering them enough as you needed to, or anyway, or somebody has cursed you and you need to do this to rectify it. But particularly, the doctor loves to sell you his medicine. This is medicine that supposedly he has put spirit power in it. Now, obviously, he wants to sell you medicine because he's going to make money from that, more money. And of course, the more money you pay, the better medicine you get. But it has spirit power, and you take this medicine and it's supposed to rectify it. But it's a very mechanistic worldview, and it very much is addressing the spirit world. Well, here's the thing. When they become Christians, that worldview doesn't just go away. It's still there. So you get syncretism. And so people go to church in order to make God happy with them, so God will bless them. And if bad things are happening to you, well, we need to worship a little harder because, if we get God happy, he will correct things because he is the big daddy, he's the great power chief of all chiefs. So if we get him happy with us, we appease him. So I find Africans coming out of church on Sunday morning and they'll say, God is going to bless me. And I say, why do you say, they say this all the time, and I always ask them, why do you say that? Well, because I went to church today and I put money in the collection plate and we took the Lord's Supper and we worshiped without an instrument. God is happy with me. He's going to bless me. Yeah, but what about this woman you've been seeing? She ain't your wife. Or what about, your business? You're unethical in your business. Or, yeah, but I went to church today. I mean, I did something for God. Now he will do something for me. They're basically trying to manipulate God. And if you take that worldview and go back and read your Old Testament, you will understand a lot of what's going on between Israel and the God of the Old Testament. They're, think if I go and worship in the temple and do sacrifices, then God's going to bless us as a nation. And the prophets are saying, no, it doesn't work that way. So this is what we're dealing with in Africa. And then another thing why Christianity hasn't matured like it should is because we haven't done a great job. I'm talking about not just Church of Christ, but all of us missionaries across the board. We just really have not done a good job of developing spiritual leadership. We have gone in and baptized and converted people and planted lots of churches and then left to go plant more churches without discipling those people and developing good leadership for them. And so I know what's going on in churches of Christ. I've talked to denominational missionaries and heads of denominations, and I'm hearing the same story. They tell me our leaders are poorly trained, they're corrupt and immoral, they're stealing from the church treasury, and they're preaching the gospel of prosperity. The idea that if you will give to the Lord, the passage, if you reap what you sow. If you give bountifully, then, the Lord will bless you bountifully. Turn on TV here Sunday morning, you'll hear preachers here in the United States preaching this prosperity gospel as well. But in Africa, boy, they've taken that and they have gone to they have exploited that like you've never heard, because preachers are preaching in a very poverty-stricken country. They can't afford full-time preachers. So preachers there end up preaching give to the Lord. Half the sermons seem to be about money and giving to the Lord, because that's how the preacher's going to get money to his salary. And then he'll steal from the church treasury if the church doesn't agree to pay him more. But everybody knows where the money is going. And so Nigerians have really exploited this and turned Christianity into a money-making scheme, preaching the gospel of prosperity. As one denominational head of a denomination told me, he says, our pastors have become a burden to our churches, which is a reason why we really need to talk about training our guys to be self-supporting, which I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, as I started thinking about this, I started changing my thinking from missions is not about how many churches we plant and how many people we baptize. It is about making disciples, because I can go anywhere in Africa and in a week or two I can baptize a bunch of people and start a church and got people going to church. That's easy to do in Africa, and you can do it in a week or two. But if I want to make a disciple, I'm going to have to invest 2, 3, 4 years working with somebody, mentoring them and discipling them to develop a disciple. So you can plant a church, but it doesn't mean you've made a disciple. But if you make a disciple, that is the church. That's a byproduct. So I had to change my thinking that missions is not about church planting. Missions is about making disciples. And that's what Jesus said. He said, go make disciples of all nations. So the question then is, that's why spiritual formation is so important to our work in Africa. That is our number one priority. But the next question is, how do you do that? How do you develop spiritual leaders? And for that matter, because this is what my sermon's going to be about, how do you do spiritual formation and develop disciples of Christ here in this country? And that's what my sermon's going to be about. But I'm talking here about, how do we? I know that developing spiritual leadership is our number one priority for Africa in leadership training. But how do you do that? And it's taken me, I've been working on this, answering this question for about 14 years now. And so there are basically 3 things that I did, and I'm starting to get behind the clock here, so I'll try to go a little faster. 3 main things that I did. Number 1, in 2015, when we moved from Mapepe, our old campus, to our new campus at Daybreak, I totally overhauled the program. We were at Mapepe a 2-year training program, and I didn't have a lot of money in the beginning when we started that school in 2005, so we built dormitories. Well, that meant we had a 2-year program. We're bringing guys in there without their wives, because that's the cheapest way to house people is in a dormitory. So they were coming without their wives, or they were singles coming. And neither one was a good scenario, if you understand the obvious implication there. So when they're young, they're not really doing ministry, they're in their 20s. So when we moved to our new campus at Daybreak, I said, I want to go to a 3-year program, and I want married students. I want to build married student apartments. We didn't even build a dormitory till a year ago. We built 30 married students. We want 75% of our students to be married. Their wives have to come. If the wife doesn't come, the student can't come, and he can't stay if she doesn't stay, and she has to go through our women's program. We want older, more mature men, particularly in their 30s. That's kind of the ideal age that we want to try to recruit. We want guys that are already engaged in ministry. We're not wanting to get guys that are thinking about doing ministry. We want to get guys who are already committed to the Lord, and they're doing it, not getting paid, and they're committed. They want to serve God. Those are the guys we want, and we want to get recommendations from their home congregation that this is a good person, has character and integrity, and is worth training as a spiritual leader. So as a result of our new approach, new program, we're now getting a better quality of student. You know, junk in, junk out. Get better quality, you can get better results. And then we're training them instead of 2 years, we're now training them for 3 years. The second big thing we had to do is I really had to work hard in developing a teaching staff that can do this program, that know how to develop spiritual leaders, not just guys that want to teach a class and that's all. They just want to be a lecturer. No, I want guys that I can train that know how to develop spiritual leadership, especially in mentoring that I'll talk about in the sermon. So we have a good staff now, the best that I've ever had in 17 years. Bright is our director. We have a dean of students. We have an older man who's done a lot of ministry in his life, who's taking the students out to do practical ministry. We have 2 guys who are focused in on the spiritual development, spiritual formation, looking at our students, making sure they're all growing spiritually. Because that is our most important area. I picked my 2 most spiritual-minded students, teachers, to head up and to watch that program and make sure we're getting the job done. And then we've got an agriculture teacher that I'll explain why we have him in a minute. And then we have 2 women, they're wives of 2 of the teachers, and they're doing the women's program, and they're just doing a superb job with the women. I mean, these 2 women are doing an excellent job developing the wives of our students. The third thing we did was, besides designing the program, getting a good teaching staff, the third big thing that we did was develop, if you want to call it, I hate this word, but the curriculum, the program. What are you going to teach? All right, the goal is spiritual formation. And so it's taken me about 14 years to put this together. The last one I just got in the last year. I got up to 7, which is the perfect number. So hope I'm done, but the Lord may tell me another 8 or 9, who knows. But I'm up to 7 right now. And this is what my sermon is going to be about in a few minutes, because it has to do with how you do spiritual formation, which we need to be doing here in this country as well. So we have designed our program around accomplishing those 7 things. Now, the other thing is we want our students to be self-supporting. For reasons I told you a minute ago, preachers and pastors have become a burden to the churches because they're too poor. They can't afford. We Westerners brought that idea that we train guys, run them through our Bible college, and they graduate expecting to get full-time jobs and get paid for it, and they go to the churches, and the churches have no money, and they're too poor, and they can't afford this in Africa. And it's a horrible idea to put them on American support. That just ruins them faster than anything. All kinds of problems with that. So, you know, we need to get these guys to be able to support themselves in ministry. And so we picked, that's why we're getting guys from the rural communities, because training and vocational training gets in it costs a lot to train guys for life in the urban areas, and so we don't have the resources to do that. So we said we're going to train guys for rural ministry, and we're going to train them to be self-supporting in agriculture. So we're teaching them basic agriculture, things to how to plant, what crops to plant, how to test your soil, how to do raised beds and fertilizer with composting and all those basic agriculture. And we teach them especially drip irrigation. And the reason is that in Zambia, it rains about 4.5 months of the year, if we're lucky. And then it doesn't rain not a drop for 7 months. But you can grow you can grow crops there, vegetables, year-round if you have water. The problem is water, not temperature. And the thing about that is in Zambia, they don't have running water. They have to walk 3 or 4 or 5 miles to the nearest stream or hand pump at a primary school in order to get water. But if they can get enough water to fill 4 buckets per day, they can grow enough vegetables to adequately feed their family and even sell some for some profit. And they get fresh vegetables instead of, most 85% of what they eat in Zambia is corn, starch, because corn is a great crop to grow, and then you can dry it and you can store it real easy. And so you just cook it when you pound it up and make fufu or shima is what they call it in Zambia. And they eat that, but that means they're getting very little protein. Well, we're showing them how to grow beans and things that have more protein. They get fresh vegetables even during the dry season. The UN tells us Zambia is the most malnourished country in all of Africa, so this is very important for our students to be healthier and their families to be healthier and to support themselves, and so they will be able to feed themselves. We're also teaching them how to raise chickens as a business so they can make some money raising chickens in the villages. So we want them to be self-supporting. But another thing in our mission statement is that we want to equip our students to do holistic ministry. That means we want them to minister both to the spiritual and the physical needs of people. And this is what Jesus did in his ministry. He came healing and preaching, it says. He dealt both with the physical, he addressed both the physical and the spiritual needs of people. So we're trying to train our students to do ministry the way Jesus did. Another reason for that is because in Africa, if your religion doesn't help you with the here and now, it's basically worthless. They don't worry about the future. They're not worried about life after death and heaven and hell. That's just not much in their concern. They're here and now worrying about survival. And if your religion doesn't help you with the here and now, it's worthless. So we're trying to help our students to be able to help people spiritually, but also to help that translate into their physical lives and make things better. And we know from missions for centuries now that whenever people become Christian, it's what's called redemption and lift. When people become Christians, their lives get better. So, we got to have that dual focus. So we need to equip our students to do holistic ministry. So not only do we want them to be able to support themselves in agriculture, we want them to go back to the village and be able to teach people in the village how they can raise fresh vegetables year-round and feed their families. Because Zambia, malnutrition is one of the biggest problems. We're teaching our students and their wives how to be school teachers. And they get practical experience in our primary school, the students and their wives, so they can go back to the village and they can start a school in their church when they go home. We're teaching them how to work with vulnerable children. Half of Africa is under 18 years of age. And 27% of the children of Zambia have lost at least one parent. And when they lose one parent, it makes a huge difference in that child's life. Usually is the end of their schooling, and they go hungry, and a bad thing. So you think about it, half the population are under 18, 27% have lost a parent. We've got a lot of vulnerable kids running around every village. It's a serious problem, and HIV has made it much worse in the last 10, 15 years. So these kids are running all over the place and in the villages. Well, we're wanting to teach our students how they can organize the church and the community to try to respond and help these kids. And if you know church history, you know that this is one of the things that won respect for the early church was the Christians were particularly known for helping widows and orphans. And that we're taking a book out of the early church and saying we need to train our students to be able to do the same. So they get practical experience working with Karen's kids, working with vulnerable children. We also want our students to learn basic medicine. Lori teaches this class called Where There Is No Doctor, and just basic how to use herbs and how to diagnose basic things, and especially preventive medicine really helps in Africa. Sanitation, malaria prevention, HIV prevention, things like that. Marriage and the family is another issue. They have gone from arranged marriages to love marriages where they choose who they're going to marry, but it's meant that they have now increased their expectations for marriage. They used to not have hardly any expectations. Now they have lots of expectations. Thank Hollywood for this. So now they got this high expectations of what marriage is supposed to be, but they haven't learned the relational skills that are necessary to create loving, romantic marriages. So they're having disastrous experience. I mean, there's rarely you see a good marriage in Africa now. So we're really trying to teach our students relational skills so they'll have a better marriage, and then they can go back to the village and teach the next generation about how to be a better husband and wife. Men still treat their wives there like a cow. Wife doesn't do what you want, you just beat her. I mean, boy, if anyone ever needed a woke movement, they need something over there. So I don't even know what woke is, honestly. I stopped watching the news. I just heard that, so I shouldn't get into politics. Man, don't do that. Okay. So anyway, we're trying to train our students to be both address the physical and the spiritual. That's what we mean by training them for holistic ministry. And as I said, that's the way Jesus did his ministry. He ministered both the physical and the spiritual needs of people. Now, moving on quickly here, I want to share with you our two other very important ministries that get over into what would be called the humanitarian side of life. The primary school. We have a primary school that's grades K through 7. We have a capacity for about 250 students. We wanted to do this because one reason there's no school in our area. There was no school for the children of our students and staff to go. So we almost had to start our own school. And then we wanted to do something about the quality of education in Africa, in Zambia especially. And Lori's a school teacher, so this is kind of her baby. If you want to know anything, sorry, Lori's not here, but you want to know about the primary school, talk to Lori. I don't know a whole lot other than what I'm sharing with you here. I just deal with the money side of it. And always need money, but not all that much. But the quality of education is a real problem in most of Africa, especially Zambia. They don't have textbooks. It's lucky if the teacher has a textbook. And they're using the old British rote system, which the teacher goes up and writes information up on a blackboard. The students copy it, memorize it, regurgitate it on a test, and pass the test. It's all about passing the test. There's not a lot of learning going on. They're not learning to think or critical thinking skills. It's very pathetic. And the other thing is teachers are not motivated. They don't show up half the time because it's not local accountability. There's no local school boards. It's all top-down, administered from Lusaka down. And the guys above don't really care all that much about what's going on at the local level. And the money gets siphoned off and stolen by everybody at the top. So, you know, nobody's caring that much about what goes on. And you would think that in the modern world, if African countries don't do better at education, what hope have they got? Because if you look at economics, you know that Africa, all the African countries at the bottom of the barrel, are they ever going to get out of that if they never try to do a better job of education? So there's a real need for this. And not only good education, but Christian education. The churches in Africa don't seem to have yet understood that raising your children and teaching your children is very important. Half of Africa is under 18 years of age, and yet most churches have nothing for their under 18 children. And most churches, very few churches have Sunday schools, and a lot of parents just leave their kids at home and come to church. So there's a real problem with that. We're trying to teach our students how to work with education, but also Christian, spiritual formation, working with children, and how to work with children. We had one of our best graduates to graduate this past November, Crispin and his wife, and we hired them. As soon as he graduated, we hired him to be the campus minister in our primary school, and his job is to focus on the spiritual life of our students and their families. So he does daily chapel, he teaches Bible classes in our school, he also goes off campus, ministers to the family of the students that are coming from off campus. And here's a big one. He is working with the Bible college to get our students to come over into the primary school to get practical experience, the students and their wives, to get practical experience teaching as a school teacher in our school, but also how to do Bible teaching and do daily chapel and get out in the village and minister to the family. So he's trying to he's coordinating our effort to get our Bible college students and their wives, training them to work with children and do a children's ministry. Half the population's under 18. I think that's pretty important. So we're really trying to get our students and their wives to learn how to work with children in their ministry, both what you call secular education as well as spiritual education. Our teaching staff for our primary school, we made some real effort this past year during the pandemic, oddly enough, to really vamp up our primary school this past year. We hired 6 new teachers. We replaced 2 or 3 that didn't have the kind of education we really wanted them to get. So we've all got the best trained teachers that we could find. We got 12 teachers in total. Another very important thing is we hired an assistant director to work with Lori to do the administration of the school. He and his wife are both teachers, and we've owned Condo for a long time. He is a really intelligent Christian man, rare that I find this caliber. And he is doing a tremendous job working with our primary school. So we, as I just told you, we hired Kristen to work with as our campus minister, with the director and our new teachers. And then on top of that, we built 5 new classrooms. We had it almost finished in November, and along came a windstorm and blew the roof off and part of the building off and balled it up and slung the roof over 50 yards into the other 5 classrooms and messed it up too. Well, I posted on Facebook, because we have a lot of folks that are supporting this ministry who also follow us on Facebook, and one of the brochures will tell you how to find us on Facebook for Karen's Kids in Zambia Missions. And oh my goodness, time. How do I kick in overdrive here? Anyway, I posted what had happened on Facebook, and I'm telling you, within a month, folks sent in the money. We bought all the materials and rebuilt it, and it was ready to start at the beginning of school in January. And I thought, Satan just thought he was going to mess us up, but God provides. That was a faith lesson for me. I wish I had time to tell you about our school lunch program, but kids there are terribly malnourished, and so for $12 a day, we feed children a meal that's high in protein, and these kids just perked up. They stopped getting sick, missing so much. They started doing academically better. Really excites Lori and I to do a great thing with very little money. You know, make a big difference with very little money. We love this little program that we're running, $12 a day, and we feed them. Oh my goodness. I left Karen's Kids running out of time. This is a very important ministry. My daughter Karen, who lives there all the time, and she not only is running the children's ministry, but she's also now become kind of in Zambia. When Lori and I are here, she's our chief administrator. We talk to her every day. I talked to her this morning, in fact, every day. WhatsApp, we can talk to her. Doesn't cost us anything through WhatsApp. We are in constant contact with what's going on in Zambia all the time. And Karen is doing a great job handling the administrative oversight of the ministry there. But Karen's passion is working with children. And it's basically, how do you save the kid's life? 1/2 of children die before they're 12 years old, and it's basically because something happens to the mother. The mother gets sick, or she's malnourished, and she can't adequately nurse the children. So Karen responds in several ways. She provides baby formula for children up to 2 years when the mother can't adequately nurse. And that's why most of the kids, half of the kids die before they're 12 years old, but it really is happening in the first 2 or 3 years, and it's related to malnourishment. And that's why malaria is killing so many and other diseases, because they're malnourished. They're not getting adequately nursed. And the mothers are malnourished, and how can they adequately nurse their children? So Karen finds, and depending on how much money she has, Lori gives these families baby formula. She will also provide also will provide medical assistance to children who get sick, needing medicine or needing hospitalization. She also will provides assistance to special needs. And then we finished building our care facility. Because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to put it in the operation, but this is going to allow her to keep. We don't believe in long-term orphan care because they have extended families that can do that. But there is a need for temporary housing. So she can keep kids for 2 or 3 years if needed. And when they get old enough and they're not needing baby formula anymore, baby formula costs $50, $60 a month, and families can't afford that. If the mother can't nurse that child, there's no alternative. But there is a need for kids until they get through those first 2 or 3 years. Then we can get them back with the extended family. There are other ministries we have, like our vision ministry. We have a autofractor kit that we can read people's eyes and print out a prescription and give people donated eyeglasses. And that's a fun ministry because that's like giving, you know about that. Bobby and Bonnie saw that. That's like curing the blind in Africa. I mean, the guy, we gave him glasses. Were you there the year? And he looked around and says, oh, the trees have leaves. And there's fun stories about that. I mean, we have people jump up and start dancing. It's very cheap, but again, making a big difference with very little. In fact, you can make a big difference in Africa with very little money. The spiritual side of our ministry continues, and I insist that it will always be our primary focus, but we do have the humanitarian side, and you'll notice we're focusing on children because that's where we think that we can make the most good with the least amount of money. The spiritual side of our ministry is pretty much being supported by churches that are supporting our work in Africa. Our humanitarian ministry, for the most part, is being supported and funded by individuals. So, unless a church says they want to give to the humanitarian side, it's going to the spiritual side of our ministry. But it's individuals who say they want to help the children or help the primary school or help with the optical clinic. I don't like talking about money, and in the past I haven't done that, but I just want to say, because we want to do more with our humanitarian ministry. If you are an individual and you want to help make a difference in the lives of children, here are some ways to do that. There's some brochures back there that you can pick up that will tell you ways that you can help with the primary school or with Karen's kids. And last thing I want to mention with my time done real quickly is we have started an endowment fund. I have done everything I can to try to find a way to get this ministry in Zambia to be self-supporting. It just ain't going to happen. I don't have time to explain you why it won't. We've tried chickens and farming, and it just ain't going to happen. A lot of it's due to the Chinese, but that ain't going to happen. That means that this ministry, unfortunately, is going to, because Africa is just too poor, the students don't have money to pay tuition, it's going to depend upon American funding. Now, that raises a problem because I'm 64 years old, and there is an expiration date somewhere. I keep looking for it, but maybe it's on my foot and I can't see it. But, let's be real. I don't know, Lord gives me 5, 10, 15, I don't know, many years. I can't afford to retire anyway. I have no retirement, but I can't retire if I want to. But one day I won't be able to continue doing this. What then? And this is something a lot of folks have asked me, what happens? Because I have tried to replace myself, and that ain't going to happen either. I have tried to find a younger guy to step in and work with me. It ain't going to happen. So what is the solution? Well, I'm going to do what our Christian colleges have done. We have started an endowment fund, and we're asking people to think about, especially in the estate planning and other things, to think about contributing. Because, you and I, we've put a lot of our time and money and our lives into developing this ministry, and now it's working great, and I'd like to see it go as long as it can. So if you want to help contribute to our endowment fund, there's a brochure back there about that as well. Well, I'm out of time, so let me just close by thanking you all for helping us to make a difference in Zambia, in Africa, and developing good spiritual leadership that can develop the church there for hopefully many generations to come. Now, the Africans are telling us now, they see what's going on in America and Europe, and they're telling us one day we're going to be sending missionaries to America. And they say that so arrogantly, bugs me. But one day we're going to send missionaries to America. And I don't like that, but it may be our great-great-grandchildren may be thankful we planted a church elsewhere in the world and they come back here. And by the way, Africans are already planting churches in Europe. Do you know that there are lots of churches being planted in Europe now, and it's Africans and Asians that are doing it. And who's going to convert the Islamic world? Do you think we Americans are going to do that? If you skin's white, you ain't going to do any good with Islamic guys. Asians and Africans are taking on that challenge. They're the ones that are going to do it, I'm convinced. So we're going to one day be thankful. Our great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be thankful that we did the mission work that we've done in the last 75 years. And because I think we're headed through some rough waters spiritually in this country like Europe already has. And we'll be very thankful that we have developed strong Christian bases elsewhere in the world to carry on the kingdom of God. And let me tell you, the kingdom of God is not shrinking. It may be appearing that way in our backyard, but if you hear what all's going on in the rest of the world, folks, the kingdom of God is growing and it's spreading. Don't be discouraged because of what we see going on in our country right now. And by the way, I think God could turn that around pretty quick. Economic collapse and some things could take care of some arrogance in our culture. Anyway, thank you all for helping us to plant the gospel. Huh? What percentage of denominations are over there? I don't know. In Zambia, it depends on what country you're talking about. And we'd have to have a long conversation and talk about individual countries. Churches of Christ are very strong in about 3 or 4 countries, and then we're very small in the rest of them. Most of the members of the Churches of Christ are in Nigeria, Ghana, and Malawi. And then we're very small numbers in the rest of the African countries. 35,000 or less in most of the others. But in Nigeria, Ghana, and Malawi, man, the Churches of Christ, they're big. That's where most of the Churches of Christ are in Africa. Zambia, I don't know. They don't really know how many members of the Church of Christ, but maybe 30, 35,000, something like that. So, all right, thank you. I'll stop. Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. I was having trouble with this, and maybe I need to switch over to I'll take this one up. If I need to back up, I'll use this one. But I think I may try yours see if I get if it advances better. I was having problems clicking and nothing was happening, so I've never had that problem, but anyway, I'll try yours. Hey, how are you doing?
I enjoyed your lesson this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so good to hear from you.
Thank you. We appreciate you all helping us.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you all.